didn't even realize I had, right? Then when you get to the interview, what do they know about you, right? You could be the next mass murderer for all they know, right? They have no clue. What are they going to do? They're going to look at your resume and say, oh, these procedures that you apply, what's going on there? And you will naturally start talking about it. And you will give a much more comfortable interview. It'll be a lot better experience, right? And then you're more likely to have the option to take the job, okay? So they're going to ask you about things that are on your resume. They're going to ask you standard questions. They're going to try to see how you respond, right? All that's going to happen. And I can't really help you with standard questions. I don't know. I mean, I do think that if you've thought through your experience like I'm showing you, and you've got a lot of different points describing your experience and the skills you have, I think when they ask you a question, like, tell me about the worst day on the job, I think when they ask you that sort of question, your mind will immediately begin to hone in on one particular context because you've thought through it and it's present in your conscious mind, right? And you'll begin to talk about it and say, and you may even realize in the context of the interview that, oh yeah, that did happen here, and here's how I overcame it. I never even thought about the fact that that Joe was upset at me that day. It was a bad day at work, but I managed to make him happy by taking care of what was bugging him. I don't know, I'm making it up, but I think that this will help you quite a bit for your interview. So I have a critique for this point. Let me read it for the sake of the camera since the camera can't see it. Systematically apply multiple standard testing procedures as prescribed by technicians to detect faulty products. There's two problems here. Number one, it's more than one line. I don't want it to be more than one line because this one word, products, that's taking up a whole line is taking up space that's valuable real estate for other points, other skills that you have that you may or may not realize you have that need to be displayed. Okay? So I don't like it for that. Also, I don't like that we've got I don't know the right English term, I guess it's kind of like a phrase in the middle of the sentence. Systematically apply multiple standard testing procedures as prescribed by technicians to detect faulty products. It makes the sentence difficult to read and understand. I'd like to take the as prescribed by technicians blurb and move it in the sentence so it fits better. So let's figure out where else it would go. Systematically apply multiple given standard testing procedures. That doesn't suggest it comes from technicians. You wanted to tie the technicians in. Systematically apply maybe we could just shorten it. Prescribed by technicians, we can shorten that blurb, taking the as out and putting it earlier. Systematically apply multiple standard testing procedures. Well, maybe just taking out as. Prescribed by technicians. I still don't like the way the sentence is flowing and it's still breaking the lines. Any ideas? Go ahead.
What if you removed standard?
Do you think removing standard is okay?
That's it.
Okay. Systematically apply multiple testing procedures prescribed by technicians. And here I think a comma would be necessary to make it clear. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, leave the standard testing, take out the whole prescribed by technicians, because if they're going to ask you about it, you're going to be like, because honestly, this is the standard for that specific company. It's not always standard. But if you think of the word standard, I mean, they're going to see, okay, the company name, like, okay, this is their standard.
Right.
So they should automatically already realize that in their head that it's the standard of the company.
Right.
And you don't even need to put in there prescribed by a technician.
That's an option. His context to him felt better with the technicians because that's where it came from. You've got a good point in that sometimes when you're writing these things, you find that you're putting in too much information. They don't really need it, okay? And that may be the case with this little phrase, prescribed by technicians, where in the context of the interview, you could bring up that point and elaborate on it, okay? So we're trying to just get the essence of it and get some firm context. I think another thing, though, another reason that we like this prescribed by technicians blurb is because it makes the context richer. If we said systematically apply multiple testing procedures to detect faulty products, it's not clear we're serving someone else, right? And I like the fact that you've got prescribed by technicians in there because I just think it makes a richer context.
I just wanted it to be made clear that I guess that it's good, I'm good at following specific instructions.
Well, if you're gonna do that though, I would say, there's another point I was gonna bring up. There's another skill in this context that no one has said yet. Did anybody pick up on it? What did he have to do this? He had to learn the procedure, didn't he? Right? He even mentioned taking notes so that he could learn it well. Now, would you say that you learned faster than people around you? Or has anyone commented and said, wow, you learned this quickly, you're doing a great job? Then you need that, right? Apparently you're a quick learner. So that's another skill that might be in this context. Now, here's the problem. If you take one context and put all kinds of skills around it, you've only got one context, and it doesn't sound very good. So a lot of times what I'll do is say, take at most 2 skills out of one context, unless it's a huge context. If the context is, I won the Nobel Peace Prize, yeah, you can probably get several skills out of that, okay? More than 2. But if the context is something like this, I'm going to take 1, at most 2 skills out of it. So we've got to decide, do you think you want this context where you're learning test procedures and applying them to detect faulty products? Do you want to talk about your ability to learn those testing procedures? Or do you want to talk about, we start out with flexibility, right? That you had all these different things you could do. Which one fits better?
I would probably say that my ability to learn them all is more.
And that may be part of the reason why we're struggling to get this where it really clicks and fits right, because you haven't just started talking yet, okay? So maybe we've chosen the wrong skill for this context. Maybe it's the ability to learn, right? What were you going to say?
I was gonna say, can't you somehow use the, well, okay, can you, well, show that he can learn fastly in another situation, or,
You can, yeah.
or basically, you know, use the same situation, just put it in different words, because you can,
You
you can take
can.
the same sentence in a different
It
set of
gets
sentences, describe
hard.
the same situation.
You're right. It gets difficult to use the same context and different words, at least for me as an engineer, because I'm not good with words. And so it's really hard for me to pull out that same context and get unique words that don't sound exactly like the last context.
But like you said last time, most things overlap, so you could just
Right.
use another situation.
You could use another situation. You could use another job, right? Maybe your ability to learn was that time you were at Burger King and wow, you picked up the register in a day and everybody else takes a week, right? So the skill doesn't necessarily have to exist in this context, in this job. It may. In that case, if you have a skill that exists in 2 jobs, I would choose whichever one's easier to write about. And it's probably going to be the one where you use the skill more and there's richer context for it.
And that's also why I think it would be, I was gonna bring that up, is I think another reason why my ability to learn is more integral here is I've had other jobs where adaptability has been important, but this is the first time that I've really had to learn all the different procedures. And
Sure.
in retail jobs, I've not really had to learn a lot of procedures, but I've been much more adaptable.
Right.
in my environment.
So I think we've got the wrong skill word. Let's put, instead of systematically applied, at this point, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this because we've put some work into it, right? We've put quite a bit of work into this. I'm going to copy it onto a new line, and I'm going to start wordsmithing it with a different skill word. Now, I think I can write this one pretty quickly. Learned multiple testing procedures from technicians to test and identify faulty products. How does that sound?
Should the word performed be included? Because we did take that out.
Okay.
Learned and performed.
Learned and performed multiple testing procedures. How about multiple test procedures? Because we don't need ing anymore. From technicians to test and identify faulty products. Is that better?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that.
Okay. See how you get to the point where it feels right? And now, at this point, since he just said he liked that one, he probably likes this one more than the last one, right? Now I'm going to get rid of the systematically whatever, right? And now the skill is, and the bullet point is, learned and performed multiple test procedures from technicians to test and identify faulty products. Great context, firm that it comes from the technician's skill out front, that this is a learning skill. Okay, go ahead.
So is it okay to combine two skills into one sentence like that?
Sometimes it's difficult to, since the performance of the test procedure is so closely tied to the learning, I think it's okay in this context. The fact that you can learn something is great, but if you can't do anything with it, what good is it? So I like putting the perform in with the learning in this case. I don't think it's a problem, but you're right, you have to be careful about having multiple skills in one sentence, because it'll typically make your bullet point way too long. And you're claiming multiple things, and this sentence is not coherent. Whereas this generates a very coherent sentence, right? Now, I just eliminated the period at the end of the sentence, because on your resume, you really don't need punctuation. I'll leave the comma in because I think the comma helps clarify the sentence. But other than that, look at this skill now. If all the reviewer of the resume does is look at the beginning, this is a person who can learn and perform. They can learn things and do something with what they've learned. And if they really care, they'll go and look at the context and see if it makes sense.
And I definitely feel that those words are better represent how I work than systematically.
Right. Yeah. So we've hit it, right? Now it fits. That's the goal of this whole thing. Yeah.
I was thinking about this in my head. I don't know if this will help people
Sure.
either in watching this or in this class. But like, it seems like, okay, first we have the context. Next we have a word that depicts basically what is happening in this context.
Right, the skill.
And then it seems like a good step in between that and before you build the actual sentence is, okay, what skill do you actually think is coming out of this? Because like we had learned and what was the other one?
Right, and that's why when we looked up, we came too systematically from flexible, remember?
Yeah.
And so that's why we went through that whole
So
exercise at the
that-
beginning, was trying to select it. We just missed it, right? I missed it. And once we realized, oh, wait a second, there's a different skill here, and he honed in on it and said, yeah, actually, that is the skill that fits that context. Then we were able to go
Okay,
that
so
way.
that's the step. So I was just saying, I would just put brackets and be like, this is what I actually think that this skill is learned, or which
Yeah.
one is referred in my head, I guess.
Right, yeah, and that's good. You can certainly, as you're making your resume, make all kinds of notes around it to remember what you were thinking. And the more words you get out there, I've found, tragically, as an engineer, I'm not good with words, but I found the more words you get out on the page, the easier it is to do some of this stuff, because it helps you lead you to words that really describe what you're trying to say. Okay. All right, any other questions, comments? Okay, now let's do it this way. Thank you for letting us use that. And I'm willing to get with any of you and work with you on your resume individually if you want. It's one of the things I'm glad to do here besides the teaching load I have. Let's take some other skills. So anyone else who wants to, in fact, at this point, all of you, most of you have written a story. If you didn't get the chance to write a story, meet someone next to you and that's willing to share their story. And look over it. I'll give you 5 minutes to read through it and see if you can find some paragraphs that indicate at least one or two skills. Okay? So you're looking for skills. And sometimes having a second set of eyes read your story will help you find those skills easier. Okay? But you can look at your own or someone else's. So I'll give you about 5 minutes, and then we'll continue.
Don't encourage. Comic Sans, I feel, is a professional standard.
I get what he's saying. What I would do is have somebody, like, a close friend, check it over, see if they, it's really the skills you pull out of it.
It's basically an Android phone.
Persistent, kind of like phones.
Oh, that's fine. You need to go back and there's a demo resume.
This is called a Google. Zeros are really class.
I was just thinking about it in my head.
Mine just says Walmart.
Well, yeah, that would go back and
they all know this. No, but everybody, you gotta think of right. Everybody interprets it differently than others. And some, like mine is
Sorry, I'll stop repeating your grammar.
I'm just doing.
I've always been told that whenever you are making something, you don't want to be too specific, but just
You
show
do not have a G.
Hit the essence.
Oh, you want that?
Yeah, I am more than I've never been with a confidence to give it a skill I have.
I'll show you. I haven't actually read it, I've already built. This is the part I need to improve on, I just need to.
Well, I'm seeing from the no jam manager on shift that you seem to be pretty good at self-managing.
That's what I just said.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. You talk too softly.
Well, speak up, Randy, come on.
I like to be that much quicker with helping customers. It shows that you're.
That's the official reason. The unofficial reason is I don't like the fact to register.
Well, don't say that.
Yeah, exactly.
On your resume.
You're communicating with coworkers, professional duties, right there.
You make sure to click on these. These are like fluff skills. These are supposed to be more technical skills. Not specifically technical, but.
It sounds like the discussion has died down, so I guess I'll go ahead and get started again. As I was telling Caleb, I got videos from last year where I and Professor Andrew McCart gave a resume workshop, and I'm saying basically the same things that I said a year ago. But he had some things to say that were, as I said, not opposite of what I say, but in addition to. And he actually had a really good publication, I think it was published by Purdue if I remember right, that had a whole list, 2 or 3 pages of skill words. If you struggle to come up with skill words that represent your experience, after you've read through your story, you might look at the skill words that he recommends. Now, like I said to Caleb, I've posted the videos from last year on my YouTube channel. You can go find it if you want. He's going to post it, I guess, on the SME group or whatever, but you should be able to find them. If you can't, come see me, I'll help you find them. I can't remember what publication it was. I'm sure you can still get your hands on it. If I can find it and figure out what it was, I'll try to make it available as well. But it had a whole list of skill words, and sometimes it's helpful to look through those to, after you've read your context, to find the skill word that fits your context. If you don't have someone to review your story, that may be a way you can go and identify skills yourself a little easier. Because once you see the word, it'll, your context will sort of pop off the page at you. So does anybody have some context that they think represents a particular skill? Did you identify anything in your story that represents a skill that you have? They'll be glad to help you wordsmith it. If not, I guess we're done, right? Because we've already done this once. You had context. Yeah, go ahead.
I commented on how in the paper, I didn't have a GM manager on shift.
Okay,
And they brought up that it's performing without a direct leadership or self-management.
very good point. That's right. So you remember the demo resume that I showed you guys, how he had that point? It was a horrible point, but it had some good skills in it. Well, how did it go? It was something like works independently with little or no supervision. That's kind of where we're going with this, right? So what word do you guys want to start with as the skill word to identify this? Tell me what to type into the thesaurus. What do you think?
Independent.
Independent, that's the word I was looking for. I seeded it. I said the word to seed it, and someone gave it back to me. Good job. Independent. See if I can spell independent. Nope. How about ENT? Self-governing. Okay, so now, let's look at the headings. We can close them off also. All I did, for the sake of the camera, was put independent into thesaurus, and then found out it's ENT on the end, not ANT. Not independent, independent. Now, this is your experience.
Um,
So which one of these matches best? We've got self-governing, impartial, self-sufficient, free, or separate.
self-sufficient?
Self-sufficient, okay. Under self-sufficient, we have self-sufficient, self-reliant, self-supporting, private, autonomous, self-contained, on your own, dependent. What do you think? Dependent's the antonym. What do you think?
I'm torn between self-supporting and autonomous.
Then let's write both down. You're torn between self-supporting and autonomous. It's funny, I can spell autonomous and I can't spell independent. Oh well. The life of the engineer. So why don't we explore both? Let's start with self-supporting, and we can always go back to autonomous. So self-supporting gets us back to self-sufficient, self-financing. I don't think you're financing yourself. You're hoping your job finances you, right? Profitable, healthy, successful, self-sustaining. Do any of these fit better than self-supporting? Not really. Then let's go back to autonomous. My guess was that autonomous would help us a little bit, but maybe not. And it gets us back to independent, self-directed, self-sufficient, self-governing, sovereign, probably not. Self-ruling, free, separate. Any of these fit better? No. Okay. So which do you like better than between self-supporting and autonomous?
Self-supporting, because it doesn't sound like I'm a machine.
Autonomous sounds like a machine. Okay. Let's see. That's fine. Now, how will we put, I'm not going to erase it, I'm just going to go to the next line so I don't lose these words. How are we going to put self-supporting into the context? Well, the best thing to do is just literally copy the context because you've already got it in your story. Okay, that gives you a start. So what was the context exactly? Is there one sentence you can, one or two you can pull out and I can type
We
up?
do not have a GM manager on shift,
We do not have a general manager,
general merchandise manager.
general merchandise. Ah, okay. On shift. S-H-I-F-T. Okay.
That's it.
Oh, that's it? That's the sentence?
That's the
Okay.
full sentence, yeah.
All right. All right. How much of the time do you think you have to tell yourself what to do?
Most of my shifts.
Most of the time. Okay. So you are, there's a couple of different ways we can go with this. The fact that you're choosing what work to do is certainly autonomous, but it's also self-directed, right? I like self-directed. I'm going to jot that down because I just thought of it. But it also means you're trusted, right? To some level. Now, there's a difference between trust being given the keys to Fort Knox and just doing your job. But it's still a level of trust. Some students have counted down cash drawers, for example, on their own. They're trusted to do that. Some students have been trusted in the past to lock up the business, to finish the shift, lock up the business, and go home. That's a decent level of trust. Obviously, you're probably going to be prosecuted and caught if you steal something, but there's still a certain level of trust, right? What are you going to say?
No, no.
Oh, I thought you had your, oh, you're fine.
I guess when you're working in engineering, the trust is pretty big because you're working, patents.
It is
and
bigger.
Like at Samtech, there's projects that are not public yet that
Right.
we can't.
They need to be secret.
Mhm.
Or you're trusted to actually get it done on time and in budget, right? That's another level of trust. So do we want to go towards trusted, or do we want to go towards self-directed? Because they're different things, right? Self-directed is I can go find what needs to be done and take care of it, right? This also suggests responsibility. Whereas trust is there are people that trust me to do this, and so they give me freedom. Which way do you think we should go with this?
Self-directed.
Self-directed, okay. So if we just begin with self-directed, and then we do not have a general merchandise manager on shift, that's the beginning, right? That's the skill we're trying to represent and the context right afterward. We obviously still have to wordsmith it to put it into a sentence that flows and says what you think it should say and describes what you have. Okay? Now, I don't like saying self-directedly do something. but I'm not sure how to put self-directed into the sentence at the beginning where I want it, right?
Could you put self-directs?
Self-direct. I would say self-direct, but not self-directs, because self-directs is third-person reference. Go ahead.
Does the skill word have to be the very first word?
Sometimes you can put the skill word in a little bit, but I hesitate to have it, I like it at the beginning. Sometimes I have to put it in at least one word. Putting it in 2 or 3 words, I try to avoid, if at all possible. Because I want the reviewer of the resume to see good things at the very beginning of all sentences. That way, if that's all they read, they still want to talk to me in an interview. Yeah.
How about can self-direct? I mean, because she
Well,
has.
saying that you have the ability and saying you do it, I think saying you do it is stronger. So if we put can, it puts the self-direct deeper in the sentence and makes the point weaker, I think. Okay. It's good to think those things, but I don't think it would work. Self-direct, daily work. Despite, no, general merchandise manager on shift.
Yeah.
It's closer, right? So, go ahead, yeah.
Could you say self-directed?
Self-directed?
Yes.
Well, the problem is if I say self-directed, I'm not sure what to do except colon after it. Self-directed, work without general merchandise manager. I want it to flow, I want it to all be a sentence. That's my own bias. There are times that I've had no other option. I've put a colon there and then described the context. I prefer to not do that personally.
It also seems like you're avoiding the past tense. For both mine and Kate's, it seems like.
I'm assuming these are jobs you have right now.
Yeah, it's just, well.
No? Okay.
But just in general, would you say that that's a good idea to avoid the past tense, or?
I think it depends. I think if it's obvious it's a past tense and it sounds okay in the sentence, then I would do it. But the point is, this is a skill you're bringing to the table now, right? So whether it's past tense or not, I don't think is as important. I would try to be a little more consistent in one job. If it's a past job using past tense, probably would sound more natural. But I don't know how, this is even tougher though, saying self-direct. Directed self, I guess, would be the past tense form, right? You could say, if we're gonna go past tense, let me go to another line. Directed daily work, or how about this? Chose daily work This is not going to sound good. Chose daily work. It was great. I drank a Coke all day. Watched TV. This is wonderful. Chose daily work.
Sometimes you dive too far.
Yeah.
The gold's above you. You gotta go back.
Let me see if there's anything I can get out of this. Chose daily work and performed it satisfactorily. I don't know. Maybe I should just forget this. But I was trying to put it past tense and then I put it in past tense and still say the same thing. But I think we've gone too far away from, well, chose daily work and accomplished. Were you ever recognized for the work you did? Anyone said, hey, you did a good job last night even though I wasn't there or anything like that?
Yeah,
Okay. Was it a manager that said that?
usually, yeah.
Okay, well then, we have good context to suggest that you chose good daily work, right? So, or good support for that. So chose daily work and was recognized for quality of efforts.
I have a slight revision to that. Is
Yeah, what do you think?
Selected assignments
I like that, selected.
instead of chose daily work.
The only thing is, these weren't assignments made by someone, or were they? Maybe they were. Maybe you knew, okay, I'm gonna make this up, I don't know what your context is. I've got to eat, let's just pretend you worked at Kohl's, okay?
Okay.
Okay. I've got to either straighten the clothes on the rack, or I've got to go put out stock, or I've got to mop the floor. I don't know, okay? So the assignments are things that are already predetermined, Or is it you going around and finding what to do?
It was a little bit of both.
Sure.
There'd be a general task for the day, and then from there, it's, you know, which sections actually need to get hit.
Okay.
So would selected daily assignments be?
That might be better, yeah. Selected daily assignments and found, located, uncovered work when not directly assigned.
Could you say during downtime?
During downtime. For the sake of the camera, let me read exactly what we have now. We've got self-directed daily work, or self-direct daily work despite no general merchandise manager on shift. We've got another sentence that says chose daily work and was recognized for quality of efforts. The last sentence I just wrote is not really complete and not written well at all. It says selected daily assignments and found work when not directly assigned during downtime. We're getting back into the brainstorming session, which is not a bad thing. Let me show you why. Of all of these three, which words do you think fit best? What do you like here?
I like the last one better.
You like the last one better? Okay, selected daily assignments. Now, what I don't like